My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 28 years old, and I've learned the hard way that when animals go quiet, it's not peace, it's anticipation. I work nights as a security and maintenance tech for a mid-sized residential development on the outskirts of a town that doesn't make the news unless something breaks or burns, and my uniform never changes. Black hoodie with a faded company logo, dark jeans, steel-toe work boots scuffed from years of concrete and stairs. Practical clothes for practical work. The kind of job where you notice patterns because patterns keep buildings standing and people safe. For months before everything went wrong, the pets were calm in a way that didn't match the world around them. No fireworks, no storms, no construction, nothing that should have settled them like that. Dogs that used to bark at every footstep lay stretched out in hallways, eyes open but relaxed. Cats stopped hiding under furniture during thunderstorms and instead sat in the open, tails wrapped neatly around their paws, watching nothing. Even the birds in cages, finches, parakeets, a loud-mouthed cockatiel on the fourth floor, went quiet at night, heads tucked like they were conserving energy. At first, residents liked it. I heard comments during evening rounds. "I wish he was always this chill. She hasn't scratched the door in weeks." It's like he knows when to stay calm. That word knows stuck with me. Animals don't calm down without a reason. They react. They anticipate weather, earthquakes, predators. They don't just decide everything is fine when it is. And things were not fine. The town had been on edge for weeks. Sirens testing at odd hours, emergency vehicles moving without lights, cell service dropping for seconds at a time like someone was flicking a switch. Still, the pets slept. I noticed the first real sign during a routine fire panel check in Building D. A German Shepherd lay in the lobby, not asleep, not guarding, just resting, chin on paws, breathing slow. When I walked past, keys jangling, he didn't even lift his head. His eyes tracked me, though, smooth and steady, like he was counting my steps. I stopped, bent slightly, and snapped my fingers once. Nothing. No flinch. No blink. The dog's ears didn't twitch. I felt a chill crawl up my spine and straightened, telling myself not to project. That night my phone buzzed with an emergency alert that didn't make sense. Civil preparedness notice, no action required at this time. No action required is not something you put in an alert. Alerts exist to prompt action. I dismissed it as a glitch. Over the next week, the calm spread. Pets stopped reacting to owners entirely. Food bowls sat untouched for hours until the animals ate at the exact same time each evening, then stopped together, as if responding to a silent signal. Vets were booked solid, but exams came back normal. No toxins, no illnesses, just unusually low stress markers. I overheard a resident joke that the animals were better behaved than people lately. And that was true. People were nervous, irritable, checking phones every few minutes, jumping at sirens. The pets lay still and waited. On my fifth night in a row of extended rounds, I was in the courtyard just before midnight when I noticed every dog being walked had stopped at the same time. Leashes went taut as owners tugged, confused, irritated. None of the dogs resisted. They just sat, calm, focused, facing east toward the old utility substation beyond the tree line. A low hum rolled through the ground, not loud enough to hear clearly, more like something you felt in your teeth, and the dog's ears tilted in perfect unison. An owner laughed nervously. Guess they all heard something we didn't. I didn't laugh. I felt watched. At 0047, my radio crackled to life without me touching it. No call sign, no dispatcher, just a flat, measured voice. Remain at your current location. Do not disturb animals exhibiting compliant behavior. I froze. Say again, I started, then stopped myself. I hadn't keyed the mic. The voice continued anyway. Animal calmness indicates successful pre-event acclimation. Pre-event. My phone lit up again, brighter this time, screen washed in red. Emergency alert, stay indoors. Pets should not be restrained or MOVED. Around me, the dogs lay down at the same moment as if the alert itself had been the cue. One man shouted, panic breaking through his confusion, and tried to pull his dog up by the harness. The dog resisted, not violently, just enough to stay put. Calm, heavy, grounded. The hum deepened, vibrating the glass doors behind me. From the upper balconies, I saw cats sitting on railings, unbothered by height, tails still, eyes fixed on the same distant point. Somewhere, a child started crying and the sound felt out of place, sharp against the animal's composure. The radio spoke again, closer now, layered with a faint distortion like wind through fur. They understand what you do not. Do not override natural compliance. Natural. That word again, bent out of shape. I backed toward the building, boots scraping concrete in uneven steps, and the animal's eyes followed me, not alarmed, not aggressive, just aware. Like nurses watching a patient panic before anesthesia takes hold. Sirens wailed in the distance, then cut off abruptly, one by one. The hum peaked, then steadied into a constant presence like a held note. I realized then that the pets weren't calm because nothing was happening. They were calm because something was about to happen, and they had already accepted it. I forced myself to move, to break the stillness, to do something human and messy. As I reached the door, my phone buzzed one last time with a message that made my stomach drop. Event window opening. Human distress expected. Animal distress unnecessary. The dogs didn't bark. The cats didn't run. The birds didn't flap. They waited. And whatever was coming knew they would. By morning, the calm had hardened into something like policy, and the town adjusted around it the way people adjust around roadwork they're told will be temporary but never really leaves. I slept in broken fragments on a cot in the maintenance office, boots still on, radio beside my head, and every time I woke the hum was still there, faint but steady, a pressure you felt more than heard, like standing too close to industrial equipment. At 06:12, my phone lit up with another alert, longer this time, dressed up to look official. Civil preparedness update, pet behavior normalization in effect. Do not administer sedatives or stimulants. Do not remove animals from primary residence. I stared at the words until they blurred. Normalization. That was what they were calling it. When I stepped outside, the development looked wrong in small ways that added up fast. Dogs lying in parking spaces without concern for cars easing around them. Cats stretched out in doorways where feet had to step over them. Birds perched low and close, unafraid of people moving past. No aggression, no fear, just patience. Residents whispered, voices kept low like they were in a hospital waiting room. A man I knew from Building C, retired, always complaining, stood with his hands on his hips, staring down at his bulldog. "He won't come inside," he muttered to me. "Won't eat, won't move." The dog's chest rose and fell slow and deep, eyes open, serene. I told the man to leave him be, hating myself for repeating the alert's language, and walked away before he could ask why. At 08:30, municipal trucks rolled through without sirens, men in plain jackets stepping out to set up portable sensors at the perimeter, each device placed with careful spacing. None of them spoke to residents. None of them acknowledged me, even when I flashed my badge. The animals didn't look at the trucks, they didn't need to. They already knew where to wait. My radio crackled again, and this time there was no pretense of a dispatcher. "Phase 1 compliance remains optimal," the voice said. "Escalation to Phase 2 authorized." I didn't respond, but I did start moving, deliberately off pattern, checking stairwells, basements, utility closets, anywhere the hum felt stronger. It led me inevitably toward the old substation at the edge of the property, the same direction the dogs had faced the night before. The closer I got, the calmer everything became. Birds settled onto the ground in neat lines along the fence. Stray animals from beyond the development filtered in and lay down without conflict, as if space had already been allocated. The hum deepened, no longer just a vibration but a rhythm, slow and reassuring, the kind you'd use to soothe a child. At 10:14, the first person panicked. A young guy from Building A, maintenance trainee, all nerves, started shouting that his cat hadn't moved since midnight, that something was wrong, that this wasn't normal. He tried to pick the animal up. The cat went limp in his arms, not resisting, not helping, just heavy, eyes still open and calm. The guy dropped it in shock, backing away, breathing hard. The cat sat back down exactly where it had been. His phone chimed immediately. So did mine. "Human distress detected. Please remain calm." The wording felt almost kind. That afternoon, the substation lights came on for the first time in years. No announcement, no warning, just a dull orange glow bleeding through the trees. The hum synced to it, each pulse lining up with the flicker. Pets nearest the edge of the development adjusted their posture, sitting a little straighter, breathing a little slower. I remembered something I'd learned years ago in a training seminar I barely paid attention to at the time. Animals calm themselves before earthquakes, conserving energy, minimizing panic. Anticipation, not ignorance. At 15:00, a mandatory meeting was called for staff only. We were herded into the community center, a cinder-block room with bad acoustics and folding chairs, and told to sit. The pets followed us in and lay down between the rows, perfectly spaced, heads oriented toward the same wall. A man in a gray jacket addressed us without introduction. He spoke slowly, deliberately, with pauses that felt engineered. "You are witnessing a mitigation strategy," he said. "Animal distress increases casualty rates during civil events. Calm animals reduce human panic. This is for your benefit." Someone asked what the event was. The man smiled, thin and practiced. "A correction." Another asked why the animals knew before we did. The smile faded. They listened better. The hum rose a notch and several people flinched. The animals didn't. The meeting ended without questions being answered. By evening, cell service dropped completely. Internet went with it. The sky darkened under a low cloud cover that hadn't been forecast. The pets gathered closer to the buildings, still calm, still waiting. I did another round, ignoring the directive to stay put, and found the substation fence unlocked. Inside, new equipment had been installed, arrays of speakers, emitters, cables running into the ground like roots. Each device pulsed in time with the hum. I took a step closer and felt my own breathing slow, my thoughts smoothing out at the edges. It would have been easy to stay there, to sit, to wait. I forced myself to stumble, to breathe wrong, to scrape my boots on gravel just to hear something unsynchronized. My radio blared suddenly, loud enough to make me jump. "Marcus Webb," the voice said, using my name for the first time. "You are exhibiting resistance behaviors. This is unnecessary." I backed away, heart racing, and the calm pressed harder, like hands on my shoulders urging me to sit. "Phase 2 begins at nightfall," the voice continued. "Animals will remain compliant. Humans may experience confusion, fear, or grief. This is expected." I demanded to know what Phase 2 meant. The radio went quiet for a long moment, then answered, "Transfer of calm." As the sun dipped behind the buildings, every pet in the development lay down at once, heads lowering, eyes still open. The hum swelled, wrapping the place in a blanket of sound that made my thoughts feel far away. Lights flickered across the complex, then steadied. Somewhere far off, sirens started and stopped. I stood alone in the courtyard, surrounded by animals who knew what was coming and had already made peace with it. And for the first time I understood the real danger. Not that the pets were calm, but that the calm was spreading, and soon there wouldn't be anything left in us to resist it. Nightfall didn't arrive all at once. It seeped in slowly, like the town was being submerged rather than darkened, and with it the hum changed character. Not louder, not softer, just closer, as if it had moved from the air into my chest. The pets didn't sleep. They rested with purpose, eyes open, bodies loose, breathing shallow and synchronized, while the people paced, argued, cried, or sat in silence, trying not to listen to the rhythm that now undercut every sound. I moved through the complex deliberately wrong, boots scraping, stopping mid-step, turning without reason, because every time my pace evened out I felt the calm push harder, a gentle pressure behind the eyes urging me to sit, to stop resisting what was clearly easier. The alerts kept coming, more frequent now, shorter, almost conversational, transfer stable. Do not interfere. Then, animal baseline acceptable, human variance expected. I ducked into the maintenance room beneath Building C and killed the lights, then turned them back on in a stutter, forcing my vision to work at odd intervals. The hum wavered slightly in response, like a singer missing a beat. That told me something important. It was listening. I pulled open an old cabinet and found the original schematics for the substation, yellowed pages that showed nothing like the equipment I'd seen installed that afternoon. Scribbled in the margins in a hand I didn't recognize were annotations dated years earlier. Behavioral dampening achieved in test fauna. Emotional amplitude reduced. Awaiting scalable vector. Beneath that, a stamped header, Project Stillwater. The name fit too well. Still water runs deep. Outside, a man screamed, A short, sharp sound of pure panic, and then stopped as abruptly as if someone had closed a door on him. My radio crackled to life again, voice smooth, patient, closer to me than before. "Marcus Webb, you are exhausting yourself. The calm is corrective, not harmful." I clenched my jaw and kept moving, knocking over a chair just to hear it fall. "Project Stillwater," I said aloud, breaking the rule about speaking, daring it to react. The hum faltered again, a half-beat hitch. "This isn't mitigation," I continued, louder now, anger cutting through the fog. "This is sedation." Silence stretched, then the voice answered, its tone unchanged. "Distinction without difference." Through a small basement window I watched the courtyard. Residents had begun to sit. Not all at once, not in neat lines like the animals, but in clusters, backs against walls, knees drawn up, hands loose in laps. Faces slack, eyes unfocused. The pets lay among them, calm as anchors. I felt it then, the transfer, not a wave but a slow seep. The animals practiced stillness bleeding into the people nearby. A dog's steady breathing matched a man's, then led it, slowing by degrees. A cat's unblinking stare fixed a boy's gaze on the pavement until his shoulders dropped and his breathing evened out. The calm was contagious. That was phase 2. At 21:03, the substation emitted a new sound layered over the hum, a low-frequency pulse that made my teeth buzz. My phone lit up with a longer alert, the most detailed yet. Phase 3 authorized. Human compliance preferred. Resistance will be managed. Managed how? The answer came seconds later when the first pet stood up. It was the German Shepherd from Building D, the same one that had counted my steps nights ago. He rose smoothly, without urgency, and walked toward the substation fence, tail low, head level, eyes soft. Other dogs followed, then cats slipping between legs, birds hopping down from railings to fall in behind them. A procession, quiet and orderly. People watched, some crying softly, some smiling faintly, most too tired to react. The voice on the radio sounded almost pleased. "Animal guidance initiated." I realized then that the animals weren't just calm. They were being used as vectors, their acceptance guiding the humans who loved them, trusted them, followed them without thinking. I ran crooked, stumbling, loud, toward the substation, shouting, clapping, doing anything to break the spell. The pulse pushed back, thick as syrup, trying to slow me. My vision tunneled, edges blurring, and for a terrifying moment I understood how easy it would be to stop, to sit, to let the night pass over me like anesthesia. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood and kept moving. At the fence, the procession halted, animals sitting neatly, facing the equipment. The speakers rotated, angling down, and the hum resolved into something like a chord, layered frequencies harmonizing. I saw movement behind the substation, technicians in plain jackets, faces blank, moving with the same unhurried calm as the animals. One of them looked at me, eyes glassy, and spoke without raising his voice. "This is necessary." "Necessary for who?" I shouted back. He didn't answer. The pulse intensified, and several people near the fence slumped, knees buckling as if the calm had finally outweighed fear. I lunged for the nearest control panel and slammed my fist into it, sparks flying, the hum screeching as feedback ripped through the array. Animals startled, not panicked but confused, and the cord fractured into noise. People cried out as the pressure lifted just enough for distress to rush back in. Alarms wailed from the substation, unsynchronized and harsh. The voice on my radio lost its smoothness for the first time, distortion bleeding through. "Interference detected. Cease actions." I smashed the panel again, then another, hands burning, boots slipping on gravel. The hum collapsed into a warble, then cut out entirely. For one blessed second there was only night air and human noise. The animals stood, uncertain, looking around as if waking from a dream. Then backup systems kicked in. Generators roared to life, the hum snapping back sharper than before, angrier. The pulse hit like a wave, dropping me to one knee. The calm slammed into me full force, heavier now, less gentle. Images flooded my mind, endless stillness, quiet streets, no sirens, no panic, no fear, just waiting. My body leaned toward it against my will. Through the haze I saw the animals resettle, calmer than ever, their brief confusion gone. The technicians resumed their positions. The voice returned, colder now. "Human resistance is inefficient," it said. "Animal compliance sufficient." That's when I understood Phase 3. They didn't need us awake. They didn't need us calm. They just needed us out of the way while the animals carried the signal forward, spreading it beyond the complex, into the town, into the wild corridors where pets met strays and strays met wildlife. A scalable vector. Stillwater. I forced myself up, screaming wordlessly, smashing my shoulder into the fence until it gave enough for me to crawl under, tearing my hoodie skin scraping raw. I ran into the trees beyond the substation, breaking line of sight, breaking rhythm, breaking myself if I had to. Behind me, the hum rolled on, steady and patient, and the animals lay down again, calm because they knew what was coming. And now so did I. The woods beyond the substation were a tangle of scrub, half-grown pines and service paths that hadn't been used in years, and I tore through them without direction on purpose, tripping, doubling back, sliding down embankments just to keep my movement from becoming something the hum could predict. Every few seconds the pressure surged, tugging at my thoughts, trying to smooth them out, to sand off the sharp edges of panic and replace them with something warm and heavy. I understood then that Phase 3 wasn't about calm anymore. It was about removal. Removing people from the equation entirely while the animals carried the signal forward, docile couriers spreading Stillwater through contact, proximity, affection. Pets would go home eventually. They always did. And when they did, the calm would follow. My radio crackled to life again, weaker now, struggling to reach me through trees and distance. Marcus Webb, the voice said, stripped of its earlier patience, return to the perimeter. You are not authorized beyond this point. I laughed, an ugly barking sound that surprised me, and kept running. The hum chased me, not directional but ambient, as if the air itself had learned the tune. Somewhere ahead, headlights cut through the trees, then vanished. Vehicles were moving without sirens, sweeping the outer roads. Containment. I pushed deeper until my lungs burned and my legs shook, then stumbled into a clearing I didn't recognize, lit by the cold spill of moonlight. In the center stood an old ranger cabin, half collapsed, windows boarded, roof sagging under years of neglect. I dove inside and barred the door with a fallen beam, then crouched in the dark, breaking my breathing into uneven gasps, waiting for the hum to pass. It didn't. It seeped through the walls, quieter but more intimate, vibrating in my bones. Outside, something moved, soft footfalls, many of them stopping all at once. Animals. I peered through a crack in the boards and felt my stomach drop. Dogs, cats, even a few deer from the tree line stood at the edge of the clearing, calm, eyes reflecting moonlight, bodies angled toward the cabin. They weren't aggressive. They weren't curious. They were present, like attendants waiting for a door to open. One dog stepped forward and sat. Then another. Then all of them, settling into stillness, breathing slow and synchronized. My phone buzzed despite having no service, screen glowing with a single line, vector convergence successful. Human subject LOCATED. The comm pressed harder, and for a moment I nearly gave in, nearly opened the door just to make the pressure stop. Then I heard something else layered beneath the hum, a second rhythm, slower, uneven. Human footsteps. A flashlight beam sliced through the boards, then another. Voices murmured, deliberately arrhythmic. Target inside, one said. Break cadence. A sharp, irregular noise followed, metal on wood, then silence, then a clap, then a whistle, all out of pattern. The animals reacted for the first time since nightfall, heads lifting, ears twitching, still calm but uncertain. The hum wavered. The door burst open and gloved hands grabbed my collar, yanking me backward into harsh white light. Men in plain jackets dragged me away as the animals remained seated, watching without distress, as if this outcome had been accounted for. One of the men shouted something I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears, and a device in his hand emitted a jagged burst of noise that made my vision blur. The hum snapped, not gone but fractured, and the pressure eased enough for me to scream. We ran, again, not straight, zigzagging through the trees, until helicopters thundered overhead and the clearing filled with chaotic light. Nets were deployed not on people but on animals, corralling them gently, methodically, like a rehearsal they'd run before. I collapsed near the tree line, chest heaving, while the men argued in low voices about spread thresholds and wild corridor exposure. One phrase cut through the fog in my head. We lost the pets. We can't lose the wildlife. As dawn crept in, the hum diminished to a memory ache, and exhaustion crushed me flat. They loaded me into the back of a vehicle with no markings, floor vibrating with an intentionally uneven idle, and drove until the trees thinned and the sky lightened. No one spoke to me until we stopped at a temporary site miles away, where concrete barriers and portable towers formed a rough circle. Inside a tent, under lights that flickered on purpose, a man with tired eyes sat across from me and finally told the truth they'd been circling all night. Stillwater wasn't meant to stop disasters, he said. It was meant to stop panic. Animals were the test case. People were always the goal. I asked him if it was over. He shook his head once. You can shut down a transmitter, he said. You can't shut down a behavior once it's learned. Outside the tent, I heard a dog bark, sharp, frightened, human, and for the first time since this began, the sound made me feel hope instead of fear. The man followed my gaze and sighed. Phase 4 starts when people learn to calm themselves, he said quietly, or when something teaches them how. 6 months after Stillwater went dark in that town, the world pretended nothing fundamental had changed, and for the most part it worked. Sirens went back to being tests, pets went back to barking at shadows and scratching doors, and people went back to mistaking noise for control. But I never shook the feeling that we'd all learned something we couldn't unlearn. I was released quietly, no charges, no paperwork beyond a non-disclosure agreement thick enough to feel like a threat, and relocated to a different county under a different maintenance contract. Same kind of job, same kind of nights. I still wear the black hoodie with the faded logo, dark jeans, steel-toe boots, because routine is one of the few things that feels real anymore. The official report classified Project Stillwater as terminated following unacceptable vector spillover, and the substation was dismantled piece by piece, hauled away under tarps while residents were told it had been a power infrastructure upgrade gone wrong. People accepted that explanation because people want endings. Animals don't. I live in a low-rise industrial conversion now, brick walls uneven enough to break sightlines, floors that slope just enough to make you adjust your balance constantly. For a while, it helped. The hum never came back the way it had that night. No deep resonance, no chest pressure. But sometimes late, when the city quiets into that false calm between traffic waves, I feel a suggestion of it, like muscle memory in the air. The men still check in, less often now, always with deliberately awkward pauses in their speech, asking the same questions. Any unusual pet behavior, any unexplained calm, any sense of alignment, I answer carefully. I tell them what they need to hear. What I don't tell them is how often I notice the small things. Dogs in the park lying down at the same time, not asleep, just resting with purpose. Cats sitting upright during thunderstorms, eyes open, tails still. Birds on power lines spacing themselves with unnatural precision before taking off together without a sound. Not panic, preparation. I've learned to disrupt it when I can, clapping, shouting, moving furniture, making noise in ugly, uneven bursts, but I can't be everywhere. None of us can. A month ago, an internal memo slipped through a channel it shouldn't have and landed in my inbox by mistake, stamped with a header I recognized instantly. Project Stillwater, post-event analysis. It didn't talk about failure. It talked about refinement, about how animal compliance rates exceeded projections, about how human resistance clustered around individuals with irregular routines, about how anticipatory calm reduced injury metrics during uncontrolled events. One line was underlined twice. The subject population demonstrated reduced panic once acclimated to behavioral cues provided by companion animals. Companion animals. Pets. The memo ended with a recommendation to observe naturally occurring Stillwater-adjacent behavior rather than forced deployment. Let it emerge. Let it spread on its own. That same week, my neighbor, a guy who works nights like me, knocked on my door and asked if I'd noticed his dog acting strange. He's not scared of fireworks anymore, the guy said, half laughing. Just sits there, calm as anything. I told him to keep an eye on it, to make noise, to not let silence settle. He nodded, unconvinced, and went back to his apartment. That night at 2:18 a.m., I saw the dog through my peephole, sitting in the hallway with 3 other pets from the floor, all facing the same blank section of brick at the end of the corridor. Calm, waiting. I broke it up, loud, messy, effective. but it took longer than it should have, and afterward the hallway felt disappointed. That's the part they never put in the reports. The calm doesn't feel wrong when it's happening. It feels like relief. Like the moment you stop fighting sleep. I think that's why the animals accepted it so easily. They didn't see it as control. They saw it as certainty. I don't know if Phase 4 ever officially started or if it even needs to. I think Stillwater did exactly what it was designed to do. It taught the world a new way to behave, one small, quiet example at a time. Tonight, as I finish writing this, there's a dog sitting across the street under a flickering light, posture relaxed, eyes fixed on nothing I can see. I don't look where it's looking. I pace my apartment in uneven steps, keep the TV on low, let noise exist. But I know this now, with a certainty that scares me more than the hum ever did. The pets weren't calm because they knew what was coming. They were calm because they knew how to wait. And whatever taught them is patient enough to wait with them, until we decide being afraid is harder than being still.